So, okay, just want to discuss dental x-rays in the cat, particularly the bisecting angle technique. And it's all actually pretty easy. Don't get too bogged down with all these angles. There's a lot easier way than doing that. Simplest view is what we call the intraoral parallel view. Intraoral because the plate goes in the mouth, parallel because it goes parallel to the axis of the tooth. So we would then just come in with our beam perpendicularly, and it's obvious that's going to give us a nice, clean, straightforward image. One little trick here, we'd automatically tend to stuff the plate in that way there, because that's the way it wants to go. But then we may then miss the mesial roots of the first tooth. If we then jam it in the opposite way, then that pushes the plate much farther into the symphysis, so you'll get that front root there quite happily. So that's the mandible, nice and easy intraoral parallel view. But we can't do that with all our teeth. So we then need to introduce the concept of the tree and the sunshine. So if we have a tree with the sun shining on it, when the sun's beam is coming in at 45 degrees, the length of the shadow will be the same height as the tree. As the sun drops down, the shadow lengthens. As the sun rises, the shadow shortens. So we can distort our image unintentionally by having the wrong angle of the beam, and that's why we need to get all these angles correct. First of all, we shove our film in the mouth, not like so at the flat end. Put the corner in, it gets it farther into the tooth. Now, when it comes to the angle of the tooth, this is where we start our bisecting angle. Now, basically we have to create a line from the tip of the tooth to the apex of the tooth, and you should be able to see down there, and that is the angle which we are then going to bisect. Now forget all this story about bisecting angles, get the head of your x-ray machine and line that up there. So we then, having got that in your mind's eye, simply halve that angle with your cone and then just up it about 15 degrees. So there's the red line from the tip of the canine to the roots. The blue line is your plate. We are then putting our head along the red line, swinging it round halfway between the angle onto the yellow line. When I say then move it up 15 degrees, what I actually mean is swing the axis out by 15 degrees from the midline. So rather than coming straight down the midline as thus, we then swing it out, separating the roots of the canine from the bonier parts of the skull. So we'll now do the same thing with the upper carnassials. So with a dog, all we would do then is just come in at 45 degrees there, so the shadow of our cheek teeth would give us the image on the plate. Unfortunately in the cat we've got this orbital rim there which messes things up, so we then need a different technique. So here we tuck this as tight as it'll go on the far side of the mouth, so held in by the carnassial tooth and the canine. On this side it's held by the non-existent canine which has disappeared. If you look down there now, we now need to come down and put our beam so it's parallel to the x-ray plate, and then far away, and that's your view, and miraculously this orbital rim is out of the equation. So just looking at the angles there, normally we would place the beam perpendicular to the plane of the tooth, but if you see where that takes us now, it's going to project the roots of that carnassial beyond the edge of the plate. So instead what we do is we actually come perpendicular to the midline, which then drops the image directly onto the plate. The other thing there is that the root images will not overlay each other. You get three separate images, whereas if you come perpendicular to the plane of the tooth, then the front two roots will overlay each other. So when we then come on to the lower jaw, unfortunately my little puppy has eaten the canine tooth, but the line of the canine tooth, the apex, is somewhere down here crown is somewhere here. So plate in, so that there gives you the approximate line of the tooth. Bring that down to halve it, tilt it out 15 degrees, take. Job done. So the red line represents the axis of the tooth. So we line our beam in orange to run perpendicular to that. We've got our plate in blue. The angle between is the yellow, so we simply then rotate our beam to run along the yellow line. We then tilt it 15 degrees out from the midline. Does that get me? Okay. Another thing which I find really important, I see that people fail on every time, they're so busy looking at these angles, they don't actually look at the cat's face when you're taking the plates. So that if we've got that in there and we're looking at the beam, you need to get down and look at the mouth and look at the beam and make sure it's all right. So you really need to get down to cat's face level to look and check your angles, and that way you will get this image in your head of actually what you're trying to achieve.